All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you.
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What up, horrorheads, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa.
And we are continuing on with our werewolf month as we get closer to wrapping the year of the monster. And we reached deep into our bag and pulled out what is honestly one that I'm so excited to get to share with all of y'all and to share with Dave for the first time. We are doing the 2002 film Dog Soldiers, one that flew way under the radar when it came out. And so now, Dave, now that you have seen Dog Soldiers for the first time in a section that we are calling a howling good time, tell me what your first impressions are of this movie, man.
Okay. I didn't know exactly what to expect here because this is a movie I was aware of. It was definitely like it's got cult status. If you're in the horror community for any significant amount of time, you're going to hear about Dog Soldiers. And I knew that it had a pretty good reputation. So I was not expecting garbage. What I was not expecting was a movie that was going to be this damn fun.
Yes.
This sounds wild, man. But this movie is Predator with werewolves.
Yes.
Dude, I kept thinking, like, this is fucking Predator, man. Like, I have been after another Predator for years. Predator 2 doesn't do what Predator does. And I'm not saying Predator 2 is not good, because it is, but it doesn't do what Predator does. In fact, no Predator movie does that.
Prey got close.
Prey did get close, but Prey has a different level of tension throughout it. And the humor that is in Predator is largely absent from Prey. There are a few humorous moments, but it is like pretty much a straight up like action horror movie. This one has a lot of the humor that's in Predator. And it felt almost like it was written by Shane Black, man. Like there were moments where I was like, that's a Shane Black joke. It's not, but it is. You know, I fucking loved every moment of this movie. There is one thing that I didn't like, which maybe we'll get to later. I don't know. We're not really talking about like technical stuff on this one. Although I thought the special effects were really good, considering that this basically was made for a couple of packs of bubble gum and like a comic book, and not even like an expensive one. Like this is like back in like the 30-cent comic book days. So anyway, I love this movie, man. It was so damn good. I am really, really excited to talk about this. What you've known this one for a long time. So what's your experience here?
I have known this one for quite a while. I saw this movie for the first time in 2003, about a year after it came out. And again, like we go back to so many times, me and some friends, Friday night in a Blockbuster, trying to find something to watch in our apartment here in college. And a buddy of mine was like, "Oh, some pre-Reddit, just when they were just message boards, some message board that he was on, somebody had been raving about this movie." And so we see it in Blockbuster, and I'm like, "Dog Soldiers." He's like, "Yeah, it's werewolves." Like, all right, cool. You know, let's go. Right? Those for all the monsters that we've done, werewolves, it does seem to be a less tapped genre than some of the others. Like exclusive
I think so.
werewolves, they tend to, they'll pop up in other things, but an exclusively werewolf movie, especially 22 years ago, was a little harder to find a new one. And so we got it home, and it's just a bunch of like 20-year-old college guys sitting around, drinking, watching a movie, and we had a blast. This movie is fun. It is gory. It is scary. It is tense. It's so many things. And to see it for that first time, it blew me away. Well, then, so I had seen it, and I always remembered it, but it's not one that I ever sat down and was like, oh man, I should watch Dog Soldiers again. I just didn't think about it. And when it was time to like watch a movie. So when we were kicking around ideas of what we were going to watch and we couldn't track down the one we were going to watch on streaming, it immediately popped into my head. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen this in so long. Then you said you hadn't seen it. So after off mic, after recording last week, my roommate heard us talking, and before we were done, I had a text from him that was just like, podcast or not, we're watching Dog Soldiers in the next week. And I walk out of my room and he's like, no lie, since I saw that movie like 15 years ago, I think about Dog Soldiers at least once a month. It's like,
that makes sense because I saw Dog Soldiers, I think it was Saturday. And I have not been able to stop thinking about it. I told everyone at work, no one asked me what movie we were doing this week. Sometimes, like occasionally, someone like Andy will be like, hey, what movie are you doing this week? Ralph usually asks me.
Right.
It's been a weird week. I haven't seen Ralph very much this week. No one fucking asked me. I just talked to someone randomly. Like, hey, you know what movie I fucking saw? Dog Soldiers. And he's like, who the fuck are you and what department do you work in? I had to talk about this movie, man.
It's so much. And when it first starts, and I guess, we'll go ahead and get into it. So we'll get into talking about the story over here in a section that we're calling Predator but Hairier. When this movie first starts, you are immediately, especially now, 2024, when it first starts, you're kind of taken aback by like how grainy and low budget it immediately looks. Like it's almost shocking now to kind of catch that, and it reminds me of trying to go back and watch the original 28 Days Later. Right? It looks like it was filmed with just like an old cell phone,
a potato.
Yeah, but it takes less than 5 minutes before you have completely forgotten about just the way it looks, because this shit throws you into the action immediately. From the couple that gets abducted to the guy who looks like he's running, you find out he's trying out for SAS or some sort of British special forces, and you're just in it right away. One of my favorite things about this movie is how offensively British it is. With its humor and with its dialogue. This movie was written by a Brit for Brits, right? Like no questions asked. It absolutely was. It is relentlessly dry humor with just everybody ragging on everybody, using words that don't mean anything in our version of English. And it starts right away. I mean, as soon as the soldiers get off the helicopter, they start ragging on each other, and it's back and forth. But I think that now watching it, 21 years later, what stands out for me, man, when it comes to this story is how gory and how good some of these special effects are, dude. They 2 million pounds, which is, what Robert Downey Jr. made to make the last Avengers movie, I'm sure. That's the entire budget for this movie. They had to have poured more than 33% of that budget into these special effects because they're so damn good. That was the one thing where it's like, by then I'd already stopped paying attention to the quality of the film. But then if you were still paying attention at that point, once the special effects start, you've forgotten all about it.
That was, I said there was one gripe I had with the movie, and it's actually the way the beginning of the movie is shot. Now, I'm a lover of film, like film photography, like shooting movies on film. I love that. There's very few people that still do that. Like Yorgos Lanthimos is like the only guy who's still doing that in horror, if you can call things like Poor Things horror, which I think you can. This movie was clearly shot on film, Digital cameras were wildly expensive in 2002 when this thing was being done. They were like IMAX cameras, right? So the only option really that he had was to shoot this thing on film, and not good quality film either.
Right.
That's why it looks like shit, because it's shit film stock, right? However, that's not the gripe that I had. The gripe that I had was that it seemed almost, and I had to double check this, I like closed out everything, reopened it. I Googled screenshots of the movie. It seemed like everything was kind of like cropped in.
Yeah.
And not so much at the end of the, like once they get to the house, no longer felt that way, because the house itself was pretty cramped. And so it felt claustrophobic and it didn't bug me. But when they were in the forest, I felt like people's foreheads kept getting chopped off. I felt like the camera movement it didn't work for me. That's the only thing that didn't work for me. In fact, it was distractingly, I don't want to call it bad, but it was distractingly offensive the way it was shot to me.
Yeah, it was weird.
However, the whole time that this is happening, I keep reminding myself, why the fuck am I caring so much about the way that this thing is shot when I keep laughing at what that guy just said?
Yes.
To me, like right away, every single character seems like a character that matters. And even though you know that that couple's going to die, the moment you see them, you're like, oh, they're going to fucking die, right? The moment that happens, I'm like, fuck. They're going to be important. They're going to be important, man. So I don't understand that, but literally everything else about this movie, I loved, man. And as soon as the werewolves show up, I forgot all about it. Right. You're right. Like you just get so ingrained, so enveloped by this thing, and you just want to know what's going to happen next, because it never, like when it zigs, you're thinking it's going to zag. It never gives you what you think is going to happen until you're realizing, like, man, had I been trying to figure this out, I would have figured everything out, right? Like, obviously, the woman took her to her family's place, right? I didn't fucking think about it, though. I didn't think about it for a second because I was so in the movie. Right. And it's the same thing that happens in like murder mysteries, where it's like, I'm so engrossed in this thing right now that I'm not trying to figure out what's happening. But if I were, I would figure it out. So, man, the story really works for me. The lore is not really explored too much. I feel like there's a lot of space to explore that here, but it's explored just enough that you feel like, okay, I'm just going to recall all the werewolf mythology that I have, and it's going to be applied here. Because oh man, well, this guy's just gotten a knife with a silver handle, so we're going classic werewolf. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm on board. Bela Lugosi told me everything I needed to know. Last week a week ago in the Wolfman. So we're cool, man. I love how non-seriously this movie took itself. Like when you see Sean Pertwee get absolutely gored and his like insides are sticking out, and it's like, well, just stick him back in and run, buddy. Like, fuck. That's the kind of movie that we're watching.
By the way, I am officially giving you as my co-host and anybody who happens to be listening as a fan permission. If we're ever in the middle of the woods and my guts are visible, just put one in my head. Like I'm done, right? Like I don't. There's no quality of life left for me if you super glue me shut. Just end it right there. If entrails are literally falling out of my sliced open stomach, just end it quickly for me, please, because I don't want to get drunk while you super glue me with a woman, like just in a cabin in the woods. No, I'm good. I've lived a good life. I'll figure out my regrets in the hereafter. Just end it for me. Like, I don't ever want to see my entrails and be like, might make it through this one. Nah.
Much less have them like eaten by a dog. It's like, well, you could just chop off that piece and super glue me back together. I think I'm a little less discerning than you are. As long as my genitals are intact, try to preserve me. But if I lose a couple of feet and intestines, whatever. I was not born a particularly handsome man. If my face gets blown half to bits, whatever. It can only go up from here. So
get you one of those cool World War I like half faces.
Yes, man, like the guy from Boardwalk Empire. Exactly like that. But once the genitals are gone, like if I've been blown up and everything is intact except the genitals, then just double tap in the head.
But you're talking about the lore of this movie, and again, it's another spot to compare it to Predator, because it wasn't until the second Predator and then forward, as that franchise kept going, where we learned more and more about the race the Predator was from. Yeah. And that first was just like, this is an alien that hunts, and we were good because the movie, that's all you needed to know.
Right.
And all we needed to know for this movie was like, those are werewolves and they're beyond vicious. They're ridiculously smart. Like, everything we needed to know, they gave us here. Mm-hmm. And so again, you're right. It's like, it's just the right amount of lore building. It's just the right amount of exposition to get you into with this movie, which is, it's survival horror. It's all of these things, just getting trapped in the house. Yes, you get that one great story twist that you're absolutely right. If you had not been so engrossed in the movie, it was ridiculously obvious. We have the it's one of those things where when oh God, what's his name? He's Owen Hart on Grey's Anatomy. Kevin McKidd, Cooper. When Cooper has the realization, you're going, oh yeah, I guess I kind of noticed that, but I didn't take the time to put into it, because when he has it, it's not
I'm
grand
as dumb
revelation.
As he is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
I
love that they don't portray it as like some grand revelation where he's like screaming because he's just figured it out. You see, you get from him like that exact moment of realization we all have, where we go, oh shit, that was painfully obvious. I love,
but isn't that real life? Like, when you're in high stress situations, you're not thinking about the obvious thing. You're like, how do I make sure that I get out of this thing? Who the fuck is stopping to think about that? Like, anyone who's like, oh, what? I saw that coming a mile away. Why didn't you? Like, no, man, fuck you. Don't be such a goddamn nerd. Like, just enjoy the fucking movie. To me, that's the thing that this movie does. We talk about how, like, the lore is just enough. I think that this movie does the most important thing that a movie can do, which is entertain.
Right.
There is no more basic thing a movie can do than entertain you. Because if I'm watching a horror movie, but I wasn't frightened, but I was entertained, I'm not going to turn it off. If I'm watching a comedy and I didn't laugh, but I was entertained, I'm not going to turn it off. Right now, if your comedy manages to make me laugh while it's entertaining me, all the better. Right. If your horror movie manages to make me scared while I'm entertained, all the better. If you're watching a movie that manages to be entertaining like this and thrills me, scares me, makes me laugh, dude, you're hitting on literally every single thing that every other kind of movie wishes it could do for one of those categories.
Yeah.
That's seriously impressive. And the fact that this is a freshman film blows my mind. Yeah. Absolutely blows my mind. He had made no other movie, feature-length movie, before this. Fucking wild to me. Fucking wild.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the guy, Neil Marshall, this is the guy who went on to do The Descent, which is awesome. Doomsday, which is criminally underrated as just a fun, ridiculous movie. And
have not seen that one.
Oh my God, so much fun. And this one not as much credit. He did the Hellboy remake with David Harbour, which was fine. It was
fine. It wasn't Ron Perlman, and I mean, let's be honest. Guillermo del Toro, he didn't create Hellboy because Mike Mignola is the fucking man. However, everyone associates, unless you're a real comic book nerd, the majority of the world associates Hellboy with the Guillermo del Toro look.
Yeah.
There's no touching that, man. There's
exactly.
no touching it.
But this guy went on to do great stuff, and then you go back and you see this one, like you said, and you realize this is his first one. This is his feature-length debut. It's amazing. And so many great shots to the little mini montage where they're finding weapons all throughout the house, and it shows a spoon get the electric carving knife, and he sees it and it cuts away and it's like, here's an axe, and then he picks it up and it cuts to somebody else with the sword, and then he goes back to him and he just looks down at the plug to it and he's like, like stuff like that, where it's these intense moments, but you still find a chance for it to be funny, but you're also you're scared for them because they're trapped in this house. The woman is constantly reminding them of how smart these things are. Man, when the lights go out and it's like they cut the generator, why would they do that? Well, they can see in the dark and you can't. And it's like, oh shit, that's a really good point. Stuff like that is so great.
They hinted at it, is the thing. Is the first time that you're seeing werewolf vision, it looks like night vision.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm not thinking, well, the werewolf can see at night. I'm just thinking oh, that's the werewolf. I know we're in werewolf POV now. So when she says that, I'm like, adoy, the werewolf can see at night. No fucking shit. This movie constantly had me so engrossed in what was going on that I felt stupid many times. Where I'm like, fuck, why didn't I think about that? Of course it can see at night because my dog can fucking see at night.
Right, because it's when they exist. A night blind werewolf is the same thing as a vampire with some sort of hemoglobin allergy, right? You just you couldn't get by. But
sorry, just want the plasma.
Let me hook you up to this machine real quick. I just need the good stuff. But I love the pacing of this movie is stellar as well, because it will be when they first run into Liam Cunningham's character in the woods and he's frantic and they're trying to Ryan, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They immediately arm up. They're calling orders, they're setting perimeters. The werewolves are on them immediately. And it is this relentless action scene, but then it gives you a chance to breathe. It lets it settle in on everything that you just saw and what they just went through, but also keeps the tension up by throwing them into this unfamiliar environment of this house just in the middle of nowhere. The closest town is a 3-hour drive and it's 50 miles to the next glen where there's another house. And so they keep building the tension while allowing you to rest for just a minute from the action. But then when the werewolves come back, it's balls to the wall again. And it's nonstop until they back them off. Then it's like, all right, breathe. We see you. We're good. We're good for a minute. They're relaxing, kind of. You need to relax, kind of. And I think that it's a really segmented kind of pacing, but I think it works really well for this movie because it only exists in 2 gears, high and low, first and fifth, right? There's no in between. There's no ramp ups in this movie. Either no action is happening or all the action is happening. And it blends it really, really well. And so I love that. I love that the soldiers in this movie felt very real. They felt extremely real. You could tell they were guys that deep down loved each other, and for you watch a movie like this, and if you're unfamiliar with like how, male relationships work, the more you rag on
like
somebody,
this.
yeah, exactly. The more you rag on somebody, the more you love them. That's just how it is. The guys that I don't like very much are the ones that I'm just nothing but cordial to. Right. Like if I've never looked you in the face and been like, fuck you, then, we're probably not great friends.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And they immediately set that up. They, and they react exactly how I would imagine it would be. You've got the Sarge who is just, he's immediate call to action. Here's how it's going to go. And they all, the first time that somebody questions an order or doesn't do exactly what they're told is when Cooper is told to leave Sarge. And then it becomes, like the matter of order versus honor, right? What do I do here? Take my order or follow the no man left behind creed?
Right.
And that's really the first time in the movie when somebody doesn't immediately follow a direct order. And back to it being offensively British, middle of all this, while you're doing that, throw the kettle on. We could all use a brew, It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's probably accurate.
Yeah, I'm never surprised by how much Doctor Who and Mr. Bean and all that, like Monty Python and stuff like that I watched when I was younger helped me out whenever I go back across the pond and visit stuff like Dog Soldiers. Because it really, really does help to really know what things like taking the piss mean.
Yes.
Because for an American, you hear taking the piss and it's like, the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
We really do need to watch more British programming. For starters, they're funnier than we are.
Yes.
Okay. Smarter than we are. All right, better writers, better actors, just better everything. All right, think of your favorite actor in an American role. It's probably a Brit. So,
or an Australian right now.
Or no, yeah.
Who are just like crystal Brits.
Yeah, man. So I mean, listen, we can sit here and wax poetic about how great the story is. But we're quickly approaching the halfway point to the show. So
hold on. But before we do that, while we're still talking story, there's one more story moment in this that I want to make sure we address. There's always a moment not always in a good movie. There's always a good like monologue moment, right? In Jaws, we talk about black like a doll's eyes, Dude, Sarge's Eddie story when they're just sitting around is so fucking good. Like so incredibly good. The way he tells that story and delivers every bit of it. And then you're talking about
the SS Indianapolis story all over again.
Yes. And then you're talking about smart writing, and then it still ends with a joke. About, the devil did end up saving his skin, just not as much as he hoped he would, and it's like, and that whole amazing heartfelt story leading up to what is essentially a punchline of just finding this dude's ass cheek. And that's all that's left of him. That was pristine storytelling. Within the story of this movie, it was so good. Like that is one, like you can absolutely put that monologue up on the wall next to Black Like a Doll's Eyes or so many of these other monologues that we've talked about, and it holds its own because that moment was so damn good. And then in truly British / all soldier fashion, immediately it's like, okay, it's been reeled down. Here's a joke, right? You got to get back into it. It's like, all right, we had our moment. Let's bro it out again. Like that. I'm talking about it feeling real. That felt like a real moment. We've all had those where you're sitting around with your buddies and you're 7, 8 deep and suddenly what was a really lighthearted conversation gets real heavy for a minute. There's a pause. Everybody lets it settle, and it's like, so a priest and a rabbi, like you immediately have to, you got to bring the energy back up. I upon rewatching, that is my favorite non-action moment from this movie.
Hands down.
It was just so damn good. It was so perfectly executed, and that is because of this amazing cast that we were about to talk about.
Yeah. Well, and before we move into that, ending that scene with a slab of beef coming and just flying down into their camp. And not just that, but Private Terry just unloading a clip into this clearly dead thing, whatever it was at that point. You don't really know, right? But like this thing just plummeted to its death if it was alive, and now you're gonna kill it deader.
Right.
Perfect writing there.
Reactions like that are why I shouldn't be trusted to carry around an automatic weapon.
Could you imagine an army of you and me, like just guys as competent as you and I are in an army? Scary, man. Scary.
Different folks, man.
Yeah. So let's talk about the cast, right? So in a section we're calling dog tags. There's not a huge cast in this.
No.
But what cast is there is extremely effective. So there's a couple of people that we've mentioned already. Does anyone stand out for you?
I could pick any one of them, right? But just that core of soldiers, and the fact that while I'm talking about one of the reasons they felt so real is because of the fact that they were definitely soldiers, but they weren't just paper soldiers. They were real people. And so I'll talk about Spoonie, right? This guy, he was a dude that constantly kind of seemed like he was out of his depth, like a lot. But then, there were other times when it seemed like he was perfectly where he was supposed to be. He was just so good at kind of everything that he put forward. I felt for him a lot because I felt I got a lot of different things from Spoonie. I got the scared guy who doesn't know what he's doing. I got the guy who, immediately was just like, if I follow orders, that's how I stay alive. He eventually kind of, he became just like everybody else, a guy who gave it every fucking thing he had. And he was such a dynamic character and kind of just everything we got for him. And he was, one of the guys that you really felt for, because you wondered if Spoonie was cut out for this, if this was just, becoming a soldier was just the only thing the only option he had. And you kind of watched as he got better at doing it as the movie went on. So I did. So I'm going to start with him.
Yeah. From the main squad, not looking at people in positions of authority, Spoon's the one that sticks out.
Yeah.
Almost like, what's the name of the actor? I can't remember his name now. He played Lucius Malfoy in Harry Potter, but his character in Event Horizon.
Oh,
There's like the characters of authority, and like clearly like these guys are the authority. But then within like the rest of the crew, he stands out. It's like, he might not be an authority figure, but he is. To me, that's Spoon to a T.
Yeah.
That role, and I can't tell you that I've ever seen him in something else. I'm looking at him, he looks super familiar, but I can't tell you what else I've seen him in. He was in Doomsday.
He was in Doomsday. I see that now, and apparently he was in at least an episode of Doctor Who.
He does take afternoon tea. Therefore, he had to have been in Doctor Who.
Oh, he had two episodes. He was in the Weeping Angels episode. So there we go. So
what a fantastic episode, man. That is, I think, one of the all-time greats. Like if we were to do a mountain of Doctor Who episodes, that would make it like in a heartbeat. I gotta rewatch that though. I don't remember him in that episode. Yeah, wow, dude, so damn good. For me, when we were looking at the cast, when you first told me about doing this, there's one name that jumped out at me, and also tied to Doctor Who. His dad was Doctor Who. Sean Pertwee.
Yeah.
As Sarge. I have not seen Sean Pertwee in many things, but quite literally everything I've ever seen him in, he's amazing. He's spectacular. Even when the thing I'm watching him in is a giant fucking turd. I don't know if you ever saw that show Gotham.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Oh, so bad.
Just awful. Could not finish it. I gave it like a season, if that. I don't know that I made it to the finale of the first season. He, however, was spectacular as Alfred. Just awesome. And that's what I feel he is like every time I see him in something, you know, whether it's Event Horizon or this, like, let's not forget Soldier. You remember Soldier?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, he is great in everything. And he sets the tone so well in this movie because, like, there's quite literally two storylines that happen within minutes before we meet him. So it's a little disorienting when you finally see Sarge and McKidd, you know, come in here, and it's like, okay, so what the fuck is actually happening in this movie? He lets you know exactly what role he plays. And subsequently, because he's in charge, the kind of squad that he leads with one action. When who is it? Is it Spoon that leaves the watch?
It doesn't have his watch. Yeah, it's Spoon.
Yeah. So Spoon leaves his watch, and he gives him his watch. Fuck, man. Like that's the thing where, like, today, no one thinks about watches because you got a clock on your phone. Right. But particularly for military, which is really why the majority of advancements in tech ever really take place. Watches were a big deal. And 2002 seems like it was not that long ago, and it's not really, you know, it's like just a hair over 20 years ago. But we don't have smartphones.
Right.
And your cell phone is very likely a Nokia brick that does not have cell service. So what fucking watch? How are you going to sync to all the fucking maneuvers that you guys got to do? You need a watch. And for him to say, here, take my watch, he is giving him what makes him in command. Like, everyone has got everyone there in that squad has got these little digital Casios, right? But he's got a proper watch. And, you know, he says, like, listen, it's not worth much, however shiny it might look, but I want that back. You know, he is giving him the symbol that creates him in their eyes, in our eyes as the audience, the person of authority. That's how sure he is of his command, that he can give this dude his symbol of authority and know that he's still the big swinging dick there.
Yeah. Oh, and then to top it off, when he's like, I guess I'll just start counting, you know, like, yeah, it's so good. And he's
so British.
Yeah. And so again, just perfectly dry timed humor, you know, but man, when he's again, when he's on the bed and they're like, and they're gonna super glue him up, his guts are falling out, and he's just sitting there getting drunk and just writhing in pain, and decides he can't take it anymore. Sits up,
just knock me out.
Just knock me out. He punches him once. He goes back and sits up. It's like, I said, knock me out, you pussy. And it's like so good. It's incredible. Kind of just the way that everything he does, he commands. He commands the group, he commands the screen. He ends up being the one who ultimately is in charge of destruction of most of the werewolves. He is always in charge. Without his watch, with his gut spilling out, no matter what it is, he's always in charge. And yes, that's a well-written character, but the fact it's Sean Pertwee who made that come to life. I never doubted for a second that this was somebody that all of these people would follow to the end. There was never a minute where I was like, you really listen to this guy? Like, this is who you take orders from? No. I'm fighting werewolves. If Pertwee as Sarge shows up and tells me to grab an axe and let's go.
Exactly.
He did so much for that role, and it really was perfectly executed. I really, really enjoyed him in that. And the other side of the command coin here is Coop. I mean, it's Cooper, right? Like I said earlier, portrayed by Kevin McKidd. You may know him as Dr. Owen Hart from Grey's Anatomy. But
was that McSteamy?
I don't think he was McSteamy or McDreamy. I think he was the one who had military experience and showed up later, because I don't think he was McDreamy or McSteamy. I think he was like a third guy. I've only seen 2 episodes. Let me Christina Ricci was on it, going back to our Sleepy Hollow.
Of course. Let me text the wife and find out.
But he does, the very first time we see him, we think he's running from people. We find out it's some sort of special forces audition, and we immediately see his humanity and the fact that he's willing to fail out because he won't just innocently kill a dog for no reason. So we immediately kind of see, okay, this guy's kind of he's cut from a different cloth than these people around him. And then we see him with his unit, and it's like, okay. And I mean, Sarge even says, he's like, you may see it as a failure, but ultimately you ended up where I think you're supposed to be. And he does. He ends up with this group of guys who get him, that he's ready, that are ready for his command. And he takes on that leader from the moment that Sarge gets his stomach ripped open. Coop takes on that leadership role so perfectly. And once again, I never for a second was like, man, nobody questioned this guy. Hell no, they didn't, because he was so sure of himself in everything he said. I loved all of that. Like I said earlier, I love the realization moment of the fact that the girl is one of the werewolves and that she's in on the whole thing, because he says it exactly how somebody who was living in that moment would say it. There are plenty of times when I watch a movie and I go, oh shit, of course. But I'm only like that when I'm watching a movie. When I'm in those situations, it's immediately oh, son of a bitch. Like, how did I miss that? How? And he gives us that. He doesn't give us the light bulb moment. He just gives us the, damn, I'm an idiot. And we've all lived that plenty of times. He gives it to us so perfectly. I loved that. And he's, and as he's getting to that moment, he's like, so that there were no werewolves in that barn that we just blew up. You weren't in the photo because you were taking it. And he walks us through it exactly the way it's kind of clicking through his mind. And then we all get to just feel stupid in that moment. And I love it. I love the way that was portrayed. And it's because he so perfectly did it.
Yeah, he is. I can't imagine anyone else playing that role. And I can think of a lot of British actors around his same age. And I can't think of anyone I would rather see in that role.
Yeah.
And to me, that's when you know that you've accomplished something almost magical with a role. When it's like, nope, that's you, man. That is all you. When he steps outside that house at the end of the movie, and he's got the dog with him.
Yeah.
You know. And it's like he opens the door, and like you get this reverse shot of seeing him come through just a doorway. You know, like it's funny, but it's almost like the world fell apart and you remained British. You used the front door, my man.
Right. Yeah.
You know, stiff upper lip and all that. Like that is, I think, such an important like telling thing in his character that it ends that way with him and the dog coming through the front door, or going out the front door rather. He refused to kill the dog at the beginning of the movie, and what he's been killing this entire movie is not dogs. You know, they're these monsters, these things. And who is it that's behind this whole thing in the first place? Like, it seems to be a government conspiracy, you know, which we never really get into. I love that we don't really get into that. I'm sure the sequels get into that. I'm sure. I really want to go out and find them now, but I also don't want to be disappointed.
Right. That's why I've never watched them.
There's no way it's going to live up to this thing. Like, in my mind, I can start to build a lore that I know is going to be disappointing once I watch the second one, because I don't think Neil Marshall was involved in any of the subsequent ones, was he?
I don't know that, for the exact reason that you're saying, because there's no way that it would live up to my my headcanon. I didn't touch it, but no, I'm seeing Andy Armstrong, who was part of Hellbound. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
it looked like he was on it. I'm not seeing Marshall's name. Nope, it's an Eric Miller script, and some stuff like that. So no, I'm not seeing Marshall's name attached anywhere.
Not that you can't have a sequel that is disconnected from the original, creative team and be good, because there are plenty of examples of good sequels that are not involved with the original writer or director. However, I don't see it going that way. So for me, just seeing him be this guy, the terribly British guy, the offensively British guy, right? That, and they all were to a degree, but I saw in him that potential that made him be the number one candidate in Ryan's troop, except for the fact that he questions orders. Right. So I fucking loved him. He was fantastic. He was the perfect hero.
So just as we're talking about it, as I'm reading, it may be that tracking him down is not an option. It looks like sequels were talked about but never actually made. It looks like in 2004 a sequel was announced but then kind of passed by the wayside. January 2005 it was brought up again, but by December 2008, all information related to the film had been removed from different websites associated with it. There was a web series that was announced and never happened. 2014, there was a poster for one called Dog Soldiers Fresh Meat, but it came and went, and that never happened. So there may not be a sequel to this. It looks like it's kind of kept getting shelved.
This thing is rife for a sequel. I'm conflicted because this thing is so good. Yeah. And it's got a beautiful beginning, middle, and end. Like, why rehash something that's already been done? Like, go and make something new. But it's also been 20 years. And I don't know, man. I feel like if this got a sequel, I would I would watch it if there was some involvement from Neil Marshall that even at the very least if he produced, if it had his blessing, if he looked at this thing and he was like, yeah, you know what, this is a worthy sequel. I need to see one. Someone make it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing apparently it's Dog Soldier's fresh meat as of June of this year is still kind of listed as dead in the water. So maybe, you know what?
Wow.
Maybe that's for the best, because you're right, because now we can develop this headcanon. You're talking about the end of it when he walks through that door, another just perfectly placed joke to end this movie when he's just the second headline on the newspapers that day. He made the front page, but much smaller than the fact that England beat Germany 5-1 in the footy. It's not a game, it's a match. Again, just so many perfectly placed jokes that make this so good. He really though, he did an incredible and absolutely incredible job. And man, it was such a great group of guys.
It really was. Do I have one more?
Yeah.
I do. Okay. So, okay. I'm going to go with Emma Cleesby as Megan. I was really torn between talking about her or Liam Cunningham as Captain Ryan. And I love Liam Cunningham, but I feel like we've talked about him already on this show.
Right.
And he's great. He's fantastic. But we've never talked about Emma Cleesby. And I feel like there is a surprising lack of femme fatale characters in horror. They show up in thrillers quite often. But in like more straight up horror movies like what we have here, we don't get a lot of that. Like the female characters are usually they're usually final girls. So to see her be the monster and ultimately the mastermind behind the demise of this troop, man, it's sinister.
Yeah.
It's sinister. And the thing is that she has such a wholesome look to her. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the hair or the eyes or a look on her face. I don't know what it is, but I bought into the like, yeah, I'm a zoologist. I'm trying to study these things. I'm trying to help you out.
I came here to be
bought
one
into
with
it.
nature. Yeah.
To me, she sells it, man. She sells it. And so when it finally hits you, and it does hit like a ton of bricks, but when it finally hits you, you're like, holy fuck, you're evil, man. You're really fucking evil. Like, you came here to have dinner.
Yeah.
And to play, and not just to have dinner, but to play with your dinner. And that's such a dog thing to do, isn't it? Like I see when my dog or my cat like get something to eat, like they fucking revel in that thing. It was so damn good.
Yeah, she honeypots him. You're talking about her being a femme fatale and showing up in thrillers. I mean, that's 100%. She plays like a James Bond villainess in this movie. 100%. Like, this exact character has been in, half of the James Bond movies, like this is exact, the babe in the woods who ends up ultimately working for or being the ultimate bad guy. And she does it so well because from just showing up in her beat up Range Rover to the standing there and letting him have his realization, she just perfectly plays all of that out. She stands there and lets it all happen. She aids and abets them in their plans just to keep the ruse up, because you're right, she's having fun. She's enjoying it. that's like the one time my dog like actually cornered a rabbit, but then wasn't 100% sure what to do. You know, like he got one and the rabbit was not getting away and he wasn't letting it get away. But then he was like, don't have the instincts of what comes next. You know, like the hunt part was in me, but not the what to do when I've caught it moment.
Right.
But then she attempts to finish the job. You know, she's all in at that point. She was so damn good that, you know, 20 years later, I had fucking forgot about that plot twist. I had 100% forgotten that she was one of them because there weren't tells. There wasn't anything there to remind me. There wasn't anything that when I saw it, I went, oh yeah, that's right. No, I completely forgot. I once again had to go, like you said earlier, Adoy. Of course. Of course she's one of them. Why else would she know so much about this race of werewolves? Why would they have let her live long enough to figure all of this out about her? You put all those pieces together and you're like, oh my God. And like I said, for me, it was, they got me again. Those sons of bitches. She's so good. Yeah. She's so good at it, man. Yeah. And she was incredible.
Every deterrent that they come up with for the wolves, she has.
Yeah.
You know, like the camera flash, which also hints at the fact that she's the one who took the picture.
Yeah.
Which is why she's not in the picture. Like these little things that you don't think about, you know, because it's like, yeah, a family would have a camera in their home. People took pictures on cameras when they didn't have fucking smartphones that had cameras in the phone. So
right.
Every fucking house had a camera. So like, yeah, of course there's going to be a camera in there, but shit, why would she know to fucking flash the thing? You know?
Yeah.
Because she knows that what she's dealing with is a werewolf. She knows that flash is going to blind it momentarily. And man, everything that she does when you realize who she is seems diabolical. And I love that. I love that we were allowed a woman character who wasn't a final girl. Because as much as I love all of the classic final girls, there's a weakness to them, right? And that weakness is part of what is so interesting about them, because the strength comes out, right? It allows us to see the character development, but she never seems weak here. And in fact, by the end of the movie, only seems to get stronger and more evil and more sinister and more powerful. Like it's fantastic. Like obviously not a positive character, because in the end she's a bad guy. But just because you are a bad guy does not mean you are a bad guy, you know? So I love this character. Absolutely love this character.
But before we move on, we talked about Sarge, and I forgot to mention this. In truly what is one of the funniest, and what I can exactly hear any military CO saying when they're first arming themselves after finding Ryan, and he's hysterical and they're trying to figure out what's going on, rather than trying to figure out what's going on, he's making sure his people are safe. He throws everybody the guns, and then he goes, "Should Little Red Riding Hood show up, I expect nothing less than for you to chin the bitch." And I was like, okay. So good. Oh my God. Just so it's quotes like that are why you think about this movie as much as you do, because there's so much of it that's so memorable.
And it is on the same level as Predator, man. It really is. Like if I were to have seen this movie as many times as I'd seen Predator, I would have all the quotes in my back pocket right now. I'd just be pulling them out like, hey, here, what about this one? And what about this one?
Yeah, but ultimately what makes this movie so memorable are the werewolves themselves, because in our Harry Howlers section, I mean, we've got to talk about this, because this is a werewolf that is extraordinarily different from the Wolfman a week ago. Very, very different from Ginger Snaps, which we both watched but didn't get a chance to talk about. So what do you think about the werewolves that were given here in Dog Soldiers?
Okay, I love this design. And I don't know why we don't get more werewolves like this. It reminded me of a refined Silver Bullet style werewolf.
Yes.
when we did Silver Bullet, we talked about the fact that it was this huge hulking thing, definitely more animal than man, but in the end kind of looked almost like a bear.
Right.
Not exactly wolf-ish. This thing looks like a wolf.
Yeah. If you're watching us live right now, you've got the perfect view right up above our heads here.
Yeah, and it's not as pure wolf as an American Werewolf in London, because to me that is more like wolf.
Right.
This is a wolf man that actually, you know what it reminded me of? Do you have a Sega Genesis?
Yes, Altered Beast.
Altered Beast, man. That's 100% what this thing reminded me of.
That's what I wrote.
Dude, I was watching this and I'm like, bro, fucking Altered Beast. Yes. That's what the fuck this thing is. You can play it on your phone.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Dude, it is mean. It is a fucking animal. And I love the Wolfman. We sat here and spoke amazing things about the Wolfman. But in the end, it seems like a man.
Right.
And the same thing kind of happens in reverse for movies like An American Werewolf in London. It's a wolf. This is, I think, the perfect hybrid of man and wolf. And then it's not just that it's because like Lon Chaney Jr. is a big dude, but this thing is gigantic, man.
So big.
It's like fucking 9 feet tall. And I don't know if it is 9 feet tall, but it looks 9 feet tall. And to me, that's enough. I was enamored with these things. I was almost upset that I didn't get to see more of them. And you see a lot of them.
Yeah.
And when there's more than one of these things in a room that already feels claustrophobic, it makes you really feel like there is no escaping this thing. Because we've all been cornered by a dog before. Whether it was a dog that was trying to do something nefarious or not, we've all been in situations where there's a dog that wants to play with us. Good or bad, it wants to play with us. I've got like an 80-pound Labrador. There's times that the dog is jumping on top of me and I'm like, yo, back the fuck up. And that's an 80-pound dog. Can you imagine a dog that weighs fucking 300 pounds?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, dude, they cut this such an imposing figure.
Mm-hmm.
But what's incredible about these to me is the fact that we get how smart they are.
Yes.
We see their pack hunting techniques. We see them attacking one door to distract so they can come in at the other one. We see them working together, and you ultimately get exactly that. They have the mentality of the wolf with the brain of a human. Right. If you have a higher order of thinking like a human, and then you apply that to the natural instincts of a wolf, is what we get with them here, because they are smart and they are brutal. They are absolutely brutal. I mean, they don't just kill and eat them. They turn these people to soup.
Yep.
They absolutely dominate them. I mean, and like we keep going back to, and they play with them. They mess with them. When was it Terry or was it Spoon that decides to box the one at the end?
Yeah. I think it was Terry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's like, and it's like obviously one swipe and he's gone, but he's like, yeah, okay. Sure, let's play this game for a little while. Yeah. And until he's had enough. And then it's like, okay, now we're done. Like you've stabbed me solid 18, 19 times. I've had enough. You're game over. I win. I love that. And I love how invincible they're portrayed as. I mean, they had to blow up an entire fucking house to take these things out. When Ryan got turned into one, he got stabbed by a sword and then just used it as a weapon sticking out of his body. Dude, when he is pinning Coop up against the wall and the sword starts and you hear it grind on his teeth. Oh, Oh my God. Like that is painful to me just thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
But to be smart enough to be like, well, this sword's not going to kill me, but it's also a weapon. So I guess I'm going to use it against you. And they're just, they're ultimately they're almost like what like a 7 or 8-year-old would do with werewolf lore if you gave them the basics and then they just got to run wild with it. They're the, well, you thought I was dead, but like they're that type of werewolf. Oh, but turns out that oh no, that doesn't actually hurt me. I forgot to tell you, but I survived, or that doesn't kill me. They're so incredibly strong and smart and brutal. It's insane how they're everything. And it's wild to watch them hunt and to watch them play. And you're right, just to see them when we first see the girl after the realization moment, and they're just kind of silhouetted behind her, and it's like this choreographed thing where they just unfold behind her. And you have another one of those moments where it's like, oh my God, they're so good. They've been doing this for so long, and they're so good at what they do. They really presented us here with an extraordinary version of what the werewolf could be, and I loved it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I really can't think of an instance in which I preferred another version of a werewolf.
Yeah, me either.
Insane. Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking back on what I just said, and it's insane.
Yeah,
but I stand by it
as well.
I stand by that. Yeah.
So,
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Oh, what's going on over here? So that only leaves us with one thing, and it's time for us to rate this movie. So, just as a reminder to anybody giving us a listen, we never rate a movie against other movies. As much as we've referenced others, talked about the ones we've done, the ones we haven't done. We've talked about Predator a lot. We're not comparing this movie to any of those things. We're just looking at what Dog Soldiers gave us as a movie. So in order to avoid the comparisons of, well, this movie got that score and this movie got that score, we create a unique metric for every movie that we rate. And for this particular one, we've got a good one. We hinted around it earlier. So, Dave, out of a possible 5 dog treat intestines, what do you give Dog Soldiers?
This is 5 dog treat intestines, man. Like, this movie is so good. Like, quite literally, there's only one negative thing that I said about this, and that one negative thing I overlooked while I was watching it. Like, I didn't even have to talk myself into this thing. And I think it simply just boils down to the fact that, like, this movie had no budget and therefore had to make do. Like, if you've got one fucking lens, you make a whole movie with one lens.
Yeah.
And if that means that some scenes feel tighter than I would like them to be, then so be it. This is as close to perfect, I think, as a movie in this budget can be, because the movie cost would you say £2 million, so roughly $4 million back in 2002. If this movie cost $40 million, I'd still be saying it was perfect.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Like, like I said, it's jarring when you first turn it on to see the film quality. And it does, and some of the camera work's a little wonky at the beginning, but you're right. If we didn't have to sit down and talk about this thing for an hour to get past those things, if you had forgotten all of your complaints by 20 minutes into the movie, like I did, then they weren't legitimate complaints. They were just things that caught you off guard and that ultimately, didn't matter. And so this is 100% 5 dog treat intestines, man. This movie is it's all of the things that we've talked about. It's funny, it's tense, it's scary, it's brutal, it's gory, it's just perfectly British. It's every single thing you want this movie to be. There is a very good reason that within the horror community this has a cult status, and there's also a very good reason why there are a majority of people have never seen or even heard of this movie. And that's okay. That's okay. You can create something that is one of the greatest films in its genre and nobody watch it. That doesn't take away from it. This thing did still turn a profit in the box office in 2002. Enough people watched this that it did what it was supposed to do, and that was make money for the people who made it. You can tell that the actors seem to have a good time. You can tell that the special effects guy was taken off the leash and just let to run wild. I mean, there's a part of me that likes to imagine that all those guys that we talk about, your Tom Savini's, and that they watch this and they go, damn, that's good. Like, they did a good job with that on a budget on a total movie budget that would be what you would pay Tom Savini to do the special effects if we got another, Land of the Dead movie. You're going to pay Tom Savini that, just the entire budget of this film, just to do the special effects. And they stand up, they shine 22 years later, man. And maybe, and ultimately that may be because the film quality wasn't great, because we're not seeing it in crystal clear 8K, and any of the flaws in what we got out of special effects don't shine. It's like watching an old Grindhouse film. It's like the fact that you're not bothered even if you know that the blood is just corn syrup, because it was filmed in black and white, so it didn't fucking matter, right? This movie being a little grainy makes it that much better. And if you can take something that was a flaw within at the beginning and you can turn it around and make it a positive, this movie wins. This movie absolutely wins. There's nothing wrong with it. I will not wait another 20 years before I watch it again. And this is one that I'm going to make sure I tell more people about. I have told in the past week, whenever people have asked what we're doing, and I've said this, and like, what's that? I'm like, it's a werewolf movie and you need to watch it. And now that I've rewatched it, I'm going to tell people who don't even ask, like you did this week, right? It's going to be like, oh, hey, you like movies? Watch Dog Soldiers. It rules.
How the people who follow Hare Krishna are Hare Krishna?
Yeah.
Right? That whole thing. Like, can I call myself a dog soldier? Like, have you heard about dog soldiers? Yeah. Hi, I'm dog soldiers.
To hear about the good word.
Yeah, doggy, doggy soldiers.
Just hanging out in airports.
Hell yeah, man.
But I mean, so there you have it. I mean, it's unanimous 5. If you've been listening and you haven't seen this movie, you got to give it a shot. Look, I will go out on a limb, and I've said this a couple times. If you like this show, and if you like horror movies enough that you listen to us talk about them for an hour and a half at a time, you're going to love Dog Soldiers. There's just no fucking way that you can't like this unless you're just like, I don't really do horror. I don't really do gore. I mean, but you're,
in which case, why are you listening to the show?
Right, exactly. Then yeah, why are you listening to us? That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no way you're not gonna like this. So this is huge recommend. Head to shiverpod.com if you want more information on Dog Soldiers, on everything that we do here. You'll find links to all of our social media outlets, as well as a link to our TeePublic store where you can pick up some of our great merch. We've got stickers on there. You can put the logo on anything. If you have any of our stuff, send us a picture. We'd love to thank you for supporting us, and keep an eye out on our social media, because we'll be announcing soon how we're going to be wrapping up the month of the werewolf next week. And Dave's mic bites the big one due to El Gadito over there.
Fucking guy.
And honestly, if you've been listening through the month of the werewolf, you've heard us mention how we're going to be finishing it next week. a lot of times because it is a keystone werewolf movie. Keep it on our social media. We'll be announcing that soon.
Absolutely. So, on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.